Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Another episode of my office development live coding sessions. Today I'm going to dive into React, as this is the most likely the driver for Fabric UI Fabric, and it needs it to be able to use that. So let's start the session. Let's see, let's put some music in. So, where are we in the world today? I'll show you where I am today. This is what's going on my place. About 45 minutes ago I thought it was a good idea to start my 1903 update, because I really wanted to use the Xbox Pass, the Ultimate Game Pass, that is, because that's currently, if you go to the store and you go to search Xbox Game Pass, if you do this and I take this into here, download the app, run the installer, then this little friend will warn you that this is now in Dutch, but it's the same in every language. What it says is that you need the May 2019 edition of Windows, so that's 1903. And what do I have over here? I still have 1809, and I was updating my Windows Update and Windows Update and Windows Update, but there simply was nothing came in. So I kind of forced it to install, to make use of this nice offer of the Xbox Game Pass PC games for free if you have the Ultimate Game Pass. And the Ultimate Game Pass is this month because the E3 is now going on. There's the offer. That's only for $1 you can get a first subscription on the Game Pass. So, but what's the use of having a subscription if you're not able to install it? So for that reason I'm now downloading. Oh, it's even updating already, so maybe we are losing the broadcast tonight. For the large part I am running the live coding from a VM, but my streaming device is actually the device that I'm trying to update right now. Let's first check if all the streams are working. Twitch.com. This seems to work. Let's see if there's some audio. Yes, there is audio. Yeah. Close this. Also go to SDN cast. And why is there no SDN cast over here? Okay, need to fix that. Go to YouTube. All these last minute actions. YouTube. And go to my channel. My personal channel, that is. And then go to channel. There you now should see that I'm live as well. Let's see. Yes. And get the share link over here. The embed. Get the embed code. Copy, put it in the admin section. Sorry for the secret screen. Oh, I need a date in the future. Home. Back. And there we are. See if it works. Yes, that works as well. Okay, that's up and running. This one can be closed down. That reminds me, I need to trigger my chat windows, otherwise I won't be able to see what's going on. That's this one, that's that one, view. Like this. Close all the other windows. You won't see a thing of this because it's all secret and I not want to share this. So what are we going to do today? What I was going over the last couple of months is starting my Office development with JavaScript. And if you get Notepad, from what we did so far, let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so we started with Office.js. Oops. Office.js. From there we went to JavaScript. Then we went to TypeScript. After that I was able to make some gists. I think you can still get them on GitHub, gist, github.com/AAFVASTM copy. Maybe I should change my username there because it's terrible to remember. Then I was playing with some content controls to get them in a list and to delete content controls, set tags and whatnot. Then I wanted to list the items that I found and put them on the web app. I should say the task pane. Task pane is basically some sort of a web interface. Now my phone is ringing, so let's kill it as well. So, sound down. So I needed some proper UI, and then I stumbled into UI Fabric. I think it's UI Fabric. Let's see my notes from last week. I can better try to look it up in Google. Office UI fabric. Fabric.js. What's this? This is core, I think. UI fabric, Office UI fabric. Create amazing experiences, and from there you get to GitHub. Let's see if we go into get started. Then I went into Fabric Core last week just to do the fonts, and let's see if there's something in here. Yeah, where just seems to be able to only do things with your fonts and your characters and some UI stuff, but the real stuff is all done in Fabric React. Apparently they decided, from the Office team, they decided to move over to use the Fabric React as the main item to build your UI in there. Add to an existing product, Office UI Fabric React npm package. But obviously, as a .NET developer, I'm completely unaware of anything that's going on with React. React is, if I'm correct, something from Facebook. Let's Google React, and then you arrive at the reactjs.org site, and there is a explanation over here. Get starting, simple component, JSX, optional, not required to use React, blah blah. No clue what it does all means, because I'm not in the web development world, and I need to do that. I need to get my heads around all this JavaScript stuff, React. I did play a lot with Angular, but it's completely different. I should say, I don't know if it's different, but my guess it's different. So what we are going to do today is take a tutorial, and let's see if that's something that we can. That's a fairly long thing, so let's start and see where we get going here. So this tutorial doesn't assume any existing React knowledge. Well, that's a good thing, because there is no React knowledge over here. Before we start the tutorial, we built a small game. During the tutorial you might be tempted to skip it, because you're not building games, but give it a chance. The techniques you'll learn in the tutorial are fundamental to build any React apps, and mastering it will give you a deep understanding of React. The tutorial is designed for people who prefer to learn by doing, and that's what we prefer. If you prefer learning concepts from the ground up, check out the step-by-step guide. You might find the tutorial and guide complementary to each other. Let's see what's in the step-by-step guide. That's the hello world. Okay, we can always do that. Try it on CodePen. What's CodePen? I'm not going into this because we decided to go into the tutorial. The tutorial is divided into several sections. Setup for the tutorial, it will give you a starting point to follow the tutorial. Overview will teach you the fundamentals, React components, props and state. Completing the game will teach you the most common techniques. Adding time travel will give you deeper insight into the unique strength of React. That sounds good. You don't have to complete all the sections all at once to get value of this tutorial. Try to get as far as you can, even if it's 1 or 2 sections. Sounds good? If we run out of time, then we just continue, or maybe my update is kicking in. Let's see where my update is going. 88%. Let's back to the VM. Where is the VM? This is the VM. What we are building. In this tutorial we show how to build an interactive tic-tac-toe game with React. You can see we're building here final results. Okay. Go to game start. Yeah. Okay, no 1-1. Codepen.io. Interesting. Let's see. You can see what we're building here, and that's what we did. If the code doesn't seem to make sense to you, or if you're unfamiliar with code syntax, don't worry, the goal of this tutorial is to help you understand React and its syntax. We recommend you that you check out Tic-Tac-Toe game before continuing the tutorial. One of the features that you'll notice is that there is a numbered list in the right of the game board. List gives you a historical of all the moves in the current game and update it as the game progresses. You can close the tic-tac-toe game once you're familiar with it. We'll get starting by simple template. In this tutorial, prerequisites. We'll assume that you have some familiar HTML and JavaScript. Well, some. It's more .NET, but you should be able to follow along even if you're coming from different programming language. We also assume that you're familiar with programming concepts like function, object arrays, and to a lesser extent classes. Well, that's not an issue. If you need to review JavaScript, we recommend to reading this guide, and this guide is a reintroduction to JavaScript. Okay, we're not going to do that now. Using some feature from ECMAScript 6, a recent version of JavaScript. In this tutorial we are using arrow functions, classes, let, const statements. You can use the Babel REPL to check what ECMAScript 6 compiles to. Setup for the tutorial. You can. There are two ways to complete a tutorial. You can either write code in your browser, or you can set up a local environment. On your computer. Setup writing code in your browser. This is the quickest way to get started. First, open this starter code in a new tab. A new tab should display an empty tic-tac-toe game board and React code. We will be editing the React code in this tutorial. You can now skip the second setup option and overview, but if you are wanting to, it's completely optional, not required. Optional instructions following along. Yes, and I tend to prefer this one. Make sure you have a recent version of Node.js. And I think I do have that. Let's go to command. CD data, CD projects, CD make directory. It probably already makes the directory, so let's see npx create react app. Let's see. I think I already have this. List global depth is 0. Oh. Let's make that. Should be npm, obviously. Yeah. Google. Check installed version of Node. Node v-3 10.15.1 10.16.0 Node oops, just have an update for command. Update node installed version. npm install npm latest -g npm-v what 690 node v 10.15 come on. Let's do this. So what's the proper way to update the node then? Other than running the MSI. Sudo. Sudo. Not recognized. Yeah, it's on a Mac. Who cares what's on the Mac? Node version. Oops, there goes my no restart later. Oh, restart later. Phew. Wow. Finish. SMD node. Day of 16 to 10.16.0. Okay, that's a long time support version. Done. Back to projects and what was following installation instruction, create React app. This is exactly what's described in here, is it? So npx, what's npx? Oops. Execute binaries for npm packages. Okay. So let's see, let's npx create React app, my app. Something's happening. So, what is it installing? The complete world. Installing packages, this might take top couple of minutes. Installing React, React DOM, React scripts. Okay. What you want. Cheers. Happy hacking. Core.js, Node script, pure Node script, React scripts, React DOM, React 16.806, 1403 packages. Okay. 0 vulnerabilities. Create my app. Inside the commands npm start, run build. Well, that's the common npm stuff. We suggest that you begin by typing cd my app npm start. No, we're not, because we are going to go over the script. What it wants us to do is cd my app, cd c source del. Let's first see what's in here. It's only the app, the index, logo, service worker. Very interesting. So let's go into cd source del star. Yes, they tell me to. Then add a file name, code, add a file name in source, new file, index.css. New file, index.js. You notice all these nice icons, they are provided by this extension. Of this extension, like the icons. For Studio Code icons, this is all providing these nice icons that you get in front of your file. So created index CSS, index JavaScript. These 3 lines on top of the index JavaScript. Already coding. Import React from React. What's this? Little bomb. Show fixes. Remove import from React. How's that to fix? import React DOM from React DOM. Oops. Import .-index.css. Now if you run npm start in the project folder, first need to save this, and open localhost 3000 in the browser, you see an empty tic-tac-toe field. Oh, already? CMD. Data, project, my, oh, see, data, project, my, npm start, yeah, obviously it's never used. Will it continue? It's a warning. That's what I thought. An empty tic-tac-toe field. Actually, there's nothing. Is it? Yeah, there's nothing in here. Is that what they mean? Empty tic-tac-toe field. Not sure if the empty tic-tac-toe field means an empty browser. We recommend following these instructions to configure syntax highlighting for your editor. These days many popular editors, Sublime, VM, Visual Code. Install the Sublime Babel VS Code extension. There seems to be one other way to get syntax highlighting working. You can learn about it in the VS Code docs. Intelligence. I think the highlighting is already available. Don't you think? I think so. When using favorite theme extension to mimic Sublime's text. I'm not sure if I want Sublime. Ext install. Well, for now I leave it as is. Get back. Close this. Help if you're stuck. Check community support. React Flux. Overview. Now that you're set up, let's get an overview of React. React is declarative, efficient and a flexible JavaScript library for building user interfaces that lets you compose complex UIs for small and isolated pieces of code called components. React has different kinds of components, but we'll start with React component subclasses. Class shopping list extends render shopping list. We'll get to the funny XML tags soon. We use components to tell React what we want to see on the screen. When our data changes, React will efficiently update and re-render components. Here, shopping list is a React component class or a React component type. Component type takes in parameters called props. Props. Okay, props. Short for properties, who would have guessed. And return a hierarchy of views, displays and the render method. The render method returns a description of what you want to see on the screen. The React takes the description and displays the result. In particular, render returns a React element which is a lightweight description of what to render. Most React developers use a special syntax called JSX, which makes these structures easier to write. The div syntax is transformed at build time to React create element. Div, the example above, is equivalent to return create div shopping list. Okay. Create element h1, see full expanded version. Yeah, okay. So it translates into React. So what if I just put this? Inspecting the start code. So where do I need to put all of this? Oh, stupid. Add the name file index.css in the folder with this CSS code. So what we need to do here is open this, and there's CSS code, very clear. Copy all of this. Is there an option to copy? So open the CSS paste. That's much better. And the other one. JS code. That explains it. Copy. JS. Now, if we run this, everything should be much more clear. Add these 3 lines to the top of the index. Why it's not in there? Oh, because I'm extracting it in my own development environment. So now let's see if I still have a browser running this. No. So get back to this. Yes. What's next? Close this one. So npm start. This should now give something like a tic-tac-toe area. And it doesn't. Let's see. Close all the rubbish. React is defined but never used. Close this. Oh, probably I didn't save. Yes. Keep doing that. Save. CMD. Data. Project. My app. npm start. Yay! Empty player grid. So back to the tutorial. No longer stuck. What's React? So shopping list. In this case, class shopping list React component. What's React? React is a declarative, efficient, flexible JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It lets you compose complex UIs for small and isolated pieces called components. React has a few different kinds of components. We'll start with React component subclasses. This is a class from extending React component into a shopping list. This is rendered, returns and blah blah, something like this. We'll get to the funny XML like tag soon. We'll use components to tell React what we want to see on the screen. When our data changes, React will efficiently update and re-render our components. Here, shopping list is a React component class, a React component or a React component type. A component takes in parameters called props. In this case, props like name, and returns a hierarchy of views to display via the render method. The render method returns a description of what you want to see on the screen. The React takes the description and displays the result. In particular, React returns a React element, which is a lightweight description of what to render. Most React developers use a special syntax called JSX, which makes these structures easier to write. The diff syntax is transformed at build time to React create element diff. The example above is equivalent to this, or the full expanded version. Yeah. React create element, class name, shopping list. Is this one shopping list? H1 list item, list item, list item. Shopping list. So there it's formatted like, it's not like that. Okay. If you're curious, create element is described in more detail in the API reference, but we won't be using this in the tutorial. Instead, we keep using JSX. JSX comes with the full power of JavaScript. You can put any JavaScript expression in braces inside JSX. Each React element is a JavaScript object that you can store in variable or pass around in your program. Shopping list component above only renders built-in documents like div and lists, but you can compose and render custom React components too. For example, you can now refer to the whole shopping list by writing shopping list. Yeah, because that's a component. Each React component is encapsulated and can operate independently. This allows you to build complex UI from simple components. Inspecting the starter code. If you're going to work on the tutorial in your browser, open the code in a new tab, starter code. If you're going to work on the tutorial locally, instead open index.js. Index.js, we already had that. That's the file during setup. The starter code is the base of what you're building. We are providing the CSS styling. So what you need to focus on learning React and programming the tic-tac-toe game. By inspecting the code, you'll note you have three React components: square, board and game. Square, board and a game. Yeah, the square component renders a single button. Yeah, it's this one. and the board renders 9 squares. The board renders 9 squares, 3 rows containing 3 squares, if I'm correct. The game component renders a board with placeholder values we'll modify later. Passing data through props. To get your feet wet, let's try passing some data from our board component to our square component. We strongly recommend typing codes by hand as you're working through the tutorial, not by copying and pasting. This will help you develop muscle memory and stronger understanding. Yes, I agree. If you do it by hand, then you're trying to learn it. In the board's render square method, yeah, this must be this one. Render square method, change the code to pass a prop called value to the square. So we change this. This time we return a square, but now I want to pass value equals to I. So my guess is that it will display something like the value. Change the squares render method to show that the value this one, I think, square, this needs to be this props value. So if you do render square, this will pass in the value and will be displayed in the button. Now it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so save this. There it is already. So what if I put in +1, save. That's better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. View the full code at this point. Yeah, that's what I get. Congratulations, you just passed a prop from parent board component to a child square component. Passing props is how information flows in React apps from parent to children, making an interactive component. Let's fill the component with an X when we click it. First change the button tag, that is returned from the square component function to this. We are going to adjust the square extends React component, render return button, class name square, on click equals to function. And the function is doing something like alert click. props value button here. If you click on the square now, you should see an alert in your browser. Okay, let's check this. Save. And it's not. So probably I did something wrong here. What's this? First Studio. Oh, we can close First Studio. Let's check if the code is correct. Return. Button class name is square. On click. Angle bracket. Function bracket. Alert click. Should be okay if you ask me. Other than maybe I need to recompile. Yes. Close this. npm start. Click. But the click is not working. Is that related to the browser? Invalid event handler on click. Did you mean on click? Oh, darn it. So my guess is that you need to have the on click. Is that true? And yes, it's case sensitive, and I did not type the capital C. Shoot. Where is it? So let's try again. Ta-da! Click. Click. How smart is this? Okay. Next step. So be aware, JavaScript case sensitive. Obviously .NET, C#.NET is also case sensitive. But I made a typo over here, so if you click square now, you should see an alert, and I did. To save typing and avoid confusion behavior of this, we will use the arrow function syntax for the event handler here and further below. So now we're going to change this into And class name square. Let's make this a little bit smaller. On click, so we need to move this. Make this a function with a fat arrow. Then we can remove this. Let's see if this is the same. Brackets, fat arrow, alert, click. Let's yeah. It's much cleaner like this. Save. Check if it's still working. Still working. Okay, thanks. Use the arrow function syntax for event handlers and further below. Notice the on-click fat arrow alert. We're passing a function as an on-click property. React will only call this function after a click. Forgetting the fat arrow and writing on-click alert is a common mistake. And would fire the alert every time the component re-renders. Yeah. As a next step, we want a square component to remember that it got clicked, and fill it with an X mark. To remember things, components use state. React components can have state by setting this state in their constructors. This state should be considered as private to a React component that is defined in. Let's store the current version of the square in this state. Store the current value and change it when the square is clicked. First we'll add a constructor to the class to initialize the state. So we have the square like this. And we want to put a cons constructor props super, no clue what it means, props super is the base, I think. This state equals to value 0 null. Something like this. So now we have a constructor and we have a render. In JavaScript classes, you need always call super when defining a constructor of a subclass. And a subclass is always the case. All React component classes that have constructors should start with super props call. Okay. Now we'll change the square render method to display the current state value when clicked. Replace this props value. This one, this props value with this state value inside the button tag, but also replace the onClick event handler with onClick, and then we need to not submit an alert, but we want to this set state with the value of capital X. Something like this. Put the class name and on-click props on separate lines. Class name on-click on separate lines. For better readability. After changes the button return rendered looks like this. Props, the state value null, that's correct. Render button square. Oh, it's also putting the class name on. Something like this. And why is doing this? This state value, correct? Yes. By calling this setState from onClick handler, we tell React to re-render the square whenever its button is clicked. After update the square, this state value will be X, so we'll see an X on the board. If you click any square, and X should show up. Let's save this and let's check the app. Plop. How cool is this? Okay. When you call setState in a component React automatically updates the child component inside of it to view the full code at this point. Yeah, it's exactly the same, obvious. Click on. The React DevTools extension for Chrome and Firefox let you inspect a React component tree within your browser developer tools. Yeah. The React DevTools let you check the props and state of your React components. After installing React DevTools, you can right-click on any element on the page. Click Inspect to open the developer tools. Let's see how this is in Edge Chromium. Developer tools. Let's see. React will appear as the last top right. Yeah, not in this case because we don't have this, probably.
To be honest, I don't have the words for this feeling.
Elements.
Feel alive every time we in my house just chilling. These butterflies come to life and my head starts spinning. And I crash every time that you say you're leaving.
Boardroom.
There's nothing I'd rather do than walk down the road.
So how does this look in Chrome?
Whenever I'm gone a while, I can't help but miss your smile and wish that I was
Local host.
I wish that I was still home with
3000. this time it's the same, because you see the same over here. But now, according to the tutorial, extension from Chrome, you can now add extensions from Chrome, allow extensions from other stores.
Because it just don't feel like home, that's we're together. No, there's nothing I'd rather do
So can I use this?
than walk down the road and chill with you.
Allow extensions from other stores. You can now add extensions from the Chrome store to Microsoft Edge. Other than the mark, yeah, allow. In this case, I don't want to add to Chrome. And now it's set add to Edge. Add extension. It's set now from Chrome. So I do the same thing. Copy link. Go to Chrome. Same thing, add to Chrome, add React tools, add extension, turn on sync. Let's skip that. So the question is, if you close this, inspect, now we have a React. Okay, we see a square in here with an X, and if we look at this one, there's no X. Now it's getting an X. Value 3, value 0. They get an X. Let's see if it's working in Edge as well. There's this one. Close this. Also inspect. And this is not working. Because I probably need to enable this. Adding extensions, React, and it says on. Okay, let's close this. Go to this one. Yes. npm start. Let's restart this one. There's the React Developer Tools. Space using development build for React. Okay. Inspect. It's actually not working, I think. Yeah, so the React component is not working for this one. Settings. Nothing about extensions. That's too bad. No React component for Edge, Chromium. In this case. Oh, I closed it. Should not do that. Close this. However, note there are a few extra steps to get it working with CodePen. Login, register, click fork button, change view, debug mode. No, I'm not going to do this. Completing the game. We now have the basic building blocks to our tic-tac-toe game. To have a complete game, we need to alternate placing X and O's on the board, and we need to wait to determine the winner. Lift state up. Currently, each square component maintains this game state. To check for a winner, we'll maintain the value of each of the 9 squares in one location. You might think that the board should just ask square for square state, although the approach is impossible in React. We discourage it because the code becomes difficult to understand, susceptible to bugs and hard to refactor. Instead, the best approach is to store the game state in a parent board component instead of each square. The board component can tell each square what to display by passing a prop, just like we did with passing a number to each square. Yes. To collect data from multiple children or to have 2 child components communicate with each other, you need to declare a shared state in the parent component instead. The parent component can pass the state back down to the children by using props. Keep the child components in sync with each other and with the parent component. By lifting state into parent component is common when React components are refactored. Let's take this opportunity to try it out. Add a constructor to the board. Do this and do that. Let's see. Where did it go? Somewhere over here, completing the game, yeah. Add a constructor to the board and set the board's initial state to contain an array of 9 zeros. So we go to the board, and instead of render we now get constructor props super props this state equals to squares. Squares array of 9. Fill with 0 with null. Something like this. Render square value. Let's make this eigen from the original one. When we fill the board in later, this state squares array will look something like. Okay. The board's render square method currently looks like, yeah, In the beginning we pass the value prop down from the board. I was distracted a little bit. Yeah, it looks like this. Square value 1, that's this one. In the beginning we pass the probability prop down to the board to show the numbers 0, 8. In different previous steps we replace the number with an X mark. Determine the square's own state. This is why the square currently ignores the value prop passed to it by the board. We now use the prop passing mechanism again. We'll modify the board to instruct each individual square about its current value x or 0 or null. We have already defined squares array in the boards and we modify the board's render square method from reading from it. As render square, it's this one. Return square value equals this state squares and the value of the array item, something like this. Beautiful code. Each square will now receive a value prop that will be either x or 0 or null for empty squares. Next we need to change what happens when the square is clicked. The board component now maintains which squares are filled. We need to create a way for the square to update the board state. Since the state is considered to be private to the component that defines it, we cannot update the board state directly from square. Instead we pass down a function from the board to the square and we will have to change the render square method in the board. Oh, which one was this then? Pass down the function from the board to the square and we'll have square call the function when the square is clicked. We'll change the render square method in board to value this state square like this, then on click equals to bracket fat arrow this handle click with the item. Return like this. Note we split the returned element into multiple lines for readability and added parentheses so JavaScript does not insert a semicolon after return. So that JavaScript doesn't insert a semicolon after return and break our code. Now we're passing down two props from the board, value and onClick. Value and onClick. These are the properties. The props in the function that square can call when clicked. We'll make the following changes to square. Replace this state value. Where's the square? Replace this state value with this props value. Square. Replace the this set state with this on click. And delete the constructor. So this is the constructor, gone, render, return button, class name square, on click is this. Props, on click. Yeah. This props value button. Okay. When the square is clicked, the onClick function is provided by the board code. Here's a review of how this is achieved. The onClick prop on the built-in DOM button component tells React to set up a click event listener. Yeah. When the button is clicked, React will call onClick event handler that's defined in the render method. That's this one. But basically that's the one that's positioned on props. The event handler calls this props on click the square on click prop was specified by the board. Since the board passed on click handle click to the square calls the handle click with the item. We have not defined the handle click method yet, so our code crashes. When you click a square now, you should see a red error screen saying something like this handle click is not a function. So let's save this and go to the start. Click. There it is. It's not a function. Okay. As expected. Crashes, not a function. The DOM button element on click has a special meaning to React because it's a built-in component. For custom component like Square, the naming is up to you. We could give any name to the Square's click prop or board's handle click method, and the code would work the same. In React, it's conventional to use on event names for props and represent events and handle event. For the method with handle events, when we try to click a square, we should get an error because the handle click was not defined yet. We now add handle click to the board class. Back to the board class. We have the constructor, and then we have the render square, but in between we need handle click with the item. Bracket const squares equals this state squares slice squares item is x this set state squares squares. So what does it do? It saves the squares and then the item is set to x and then it's stored. This is all we have. Save. Click, 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 click. After these changes we are again able to click on the squares to fill in the same we had before. However, now the state is stored in both components instead of the individual square components. When the board state changes, the square component re-renders automatically, keeping the state of all squares in the board components will allow it to determine the winner of the future. Since the square components no longer maintain state, the square components receive values from the board component and inform the board component when they are clicked. In React terms, the square components are now controlled components. The board has full control over them. Now how in handle click we call slice to create a copy of the squares. That's here. Create a copy of the squares and modify. Instead of modifying the existing array, we will explain why we create a copy of squares in the next section. Why immutability is important. In the previous code example we suggested that you use slice method to create a copy of the squares array to modify instead of modifying the existing array. We'll now discuss immutability and why immutability is important to learn. There are generally two approaches to changing data. The first approach is to mutate the data and directly changing the data's value. The second approach is to replace the data with a new copy which has the desired changes. Data change with mutation. The player score 1 Jeff score 2. Now player is score 2 named Jeff. Data change without mutation. For player scored named Jeff. New player is object assigned player score 2. Now player is unchanged, but the new player is score 2 Jeff. Or if you are using object spread syntax proposal, you can write new for new player is okay, that's the dot player dot player scores 2. Okay, that's new for me. So dot 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 equals to object assign player. So what is this? Is this object assigned player, and put in the score 2 in there. So why didn't put in Jeff in there? The end result is the same, but by not mutating or changing underlying data directly, we gain several benefits described below. Complex feature becomes simple. Immutable makes complex features much easier to implement. Later in this tutorial we implement time travel feature that allows to review the tic-tac-toe game history and jump back to the previous moves. This functionality isn't specific to games, and the ability to undo and redo certain actions is a common requirement in applications avoiding direct data mutation. Let's just keep previous version of the game history intact and reuse them. Detecting changes in mutable objects is difficult because modified directly. The detection requires immutable objects to be compared to the previous copies of itself and the entire object tree to be traversed. Detecting changes in immutable objects is considerably easier if the immutable object that is being referenced is different than the previous one, then the object has changed. Determining when to re-render in React. The main benefit of immutable is that it helps you build pure components in React. Immutable data can easily determine if changes have been made. Helps to determine when a component requires re-rendering. You can learn all about the should component update and how you can build pure components by reading optimizing performance. Function components. We now change the square to be a function component. In React, function components are a simpler way to rewrite components that only contain a render method and don't have their own state. Instead of defining a class which extends React components, we can write a function that takes props as input and returns what should be rendered. Function components are less tedious to write than classes, and many components function components are less tedious. Many components can be expressed. So replace the square class with this function. The square can now be a function. Square that accepts props, and it returns. It doesn't render. It returns a button. Class name square. OnClick is this. OnClick is props onClick. Props onClick. Let's see, class name. Oops. Class name square onClick is equals to props onClick and no angles, and what it's doing, showing this props value. We have changed this props to props both times it appears, because it's not this anymore. When we modified the square to be a function, we also changed onClick to a shorter onClick, props onClick. Note the lack of parentheses on both sides. Yeah. Take turns. Now we need to fix the obvious defect in a tic-tac-toe game. The O's cannot be marked on the board. We'll set the first move to be X. By default, we can set the default by modifying the initial state in a board constructor, like the board constructor props, super props. This state is squares array 9 fill 0 and no fill. X is next equals to true, so we start with an X. Each time the player moves, X is next boolean will be flipped to determine which player goes next, and the game state will be saved. We'll update the board handle click, const squares is this state squares slice, that's still the same, and then squares I is this state, X is next, question is an X, otherwise it will be an O. This set state squares. Let's see. Set state squares will be squares, comma. What's happening? Okay. I said comma. X is next. Colon, not this state. So it flips the X is next property. I'm not sure why there's a comma. I don't think there needs to be a comma over here. With the change X take turns, try it. Let's also change the status text in the board's render so it displays which player has the next turn. Let's first check this. Save. Line 12. Yeah, there's an error in here. Select the function square. Yeah, there's one too many. Save. There it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Replay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Next player's X, still saying that it's X. are going to change that. Next player, where's the next player? Here, next player will be plus. This state X is next, question mark. If that's the case, then X, otherwise capital O, save, check, X, O, X, O, X, O, X, O, X. Okay. After applying these changes, you should have this board component. Yeah. Declare a winner. Now that we show which player turn is next, we should also know when the game is won, and there are no more text. Copy the helper function and paste it at the end of the file. This goes against the suggestion that you should not do this. Like this. Given an array of 9 squares, the function will check for a winner and return X or 0 or null if appropriate. We will calculate winner in the board's render function to check if a player has won. If a player has won, we can display text as winner. We replace the status declaration in board's render function with this code. The board render function. Render. In this case it will be const winner equals to calculate winner, this state squares, let status if winner, then status equals to winner and add some winner information. Winner else status is next player. This is basically this one. Something like this. We can now change the board handle click function to return early by ignoring a click if someone won. the game or if square is already filled. Handle click. Const squares is this state square slice. If calculate squares or squares item I in that case return, otherwise yeah, so it's adding this extra thingy in here. Let's see. If calculate winner times this is congratulations, you now have a working tic-tac-toe game. And you've learned the basics of React too. Well, I'm not sure if I'm already learning the React.
Oh my god, I never thought I'd ever hear MGMT again. But guess who popped up on the Yo Gabba
1,
Gabba
2,
Spotify
3,
station
4, 5, 6, 7. Winner X. And it stopped. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Winner X. 1, 0, X, 0,
and Brooklyn label, but when she's back in Franklin, she can never get a table. She remembers Luna Lounge where she passed out flyers for an underground band named Arcade Fire. Before Lena Dunham was successful.
This is war games. You remember this has also had a tic-tac-toe, and you learned that you never would be winning. Adding time travel. How much is there to go?
This may seem like a stupid
Picking a
question,
key.
but is breast milk vegan? Can I call you back in a bit? I have to Skype my lactation consultant.
She looks so good when she shops organic, cause she cares about her baby and the future of our planet. But life has gotten hectic now that she's become a mom. Though the charter school waiting list isn't all that long, and the Mandarin immersion that they offer every morning combines a bit of Waldorf and a bit of Montessori. And the rooftop playground has an urban petting zoo with recycled wood chips and a Manhattan view.
Adding time travel. Thinking of ending the show at this point, and because we're already 2 hours in now, and next time we will continue with adding time travel. Oh, there's a link in here, I think. Click. Is there? Yeah. Copy link. Time travel, so we need to keep that in mind. We're exactly 2 hours now in. So what we learned today is nothing much related to the Office development, because these are the basics that we need to use for Fabric UI. Next time we'll finish the tutorial, and after that we continue by implementing some Fabric UI items in our ScriptLab project that we have worked on in previous items. I will put in the link of the tutorial in the recording, And by doing so, I want to say that we will be here next week. Let's see. Next week is June the 18th for me for the live coding session. Obviously on Thursday, Thursday we have the generic SDN cast sessions. But at this time, the June 18 will be the next office development live coding session. So we'll see you next time in the office development live coding session I should say, with me, Maarten van Stam, and see you next time.